I made this replica of Bilbo's backpack from the Hobbit movies. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure, so I made the pattern available at the link below. I'm going to show you all of the details and how I put mine together. I spent a lot of time on this pattern trying to get the proportions and overall feel as accurate as possible. The two main changes I made to mine were the color of the sides and the style of the buckles. My pattern can be printed off on either US letter or A4 sized paper. Print in portrait and make sure to select actual size in your print settings. I've included test squares so you can ensure it printed out at the correct size. Trim the edges and tape everything together according to the layout indicated. Then cut out your pattern pieces. The world is not in your books and maps, it's out there, so let's get started. I made my whole backpack out of leather, but you could select other materials. The main body of my pack is vegtan cowhide, and I made things extra complicated by hand dyeing everything. I recommend somewhere between 6 ounce to 9 ounce thickness. I used leather for my sides. This did make the darts and gathers a bit trickier. I think a thick waxed canvas would look lovely, but you could use any durable fabric. Just note that the way I constructed mine is with the seam allowance to the outside, so consider fraying if you're using fabric. My straps are also vegtan cowhide. I lined my shoulder straps for extra durability and comfort. You definitely want at least 9 ounce total thickness for the shoulder straps. The thinner the straps, the more they will stretch out over time. You will also need 3 1.5 inch buckles, 2 1.25 inch buckles, rivets in the correct thickness for the leather you are using, drawstrings and optional grommets, and stitching materials according to your chosen stitching method. Trace your pattern onto your materials. If you're using leather, it's always a good idea to only write on the backside so you don't accidentally mark up your lovely top grain. Just make sure to check for scars or marks on the front so you can avoid them, or purposefully include them for the aesthetic. Note that some pattern pieces require multiples and some require 2 that are opposites of one another. This is indicated on the pattern. I used one long piece of hide for the main body of the pack, however, if you want to piece it together, I included dividing lines between the various parts. If you're doing this, just make sure to add seam allowance before cutting it out. The sides have a gather at the top. I used a leather drawstring and grommets for mine, but there are other options. The pockets have decorative darts along the top. At the bottom of the pockets, I eased around the corners a bit and used the 2 darts to eliminate the rest of the excess. You may need to adjust these darts depending on the thickness of the leather that you're using. If you're using fabric, you can likely eliminate the bottom darts entirely by just gathering the fabric. A strap cutter will speed up the process of cutting out the straps, but it isn't necessary. You can also use a metal ruler and a box cutter. My shoulder and main straps are 1.5 inch wide, and my pocket straps are 1.25 inch wide. There are a lot of things you can do to the edges of leather to get a cleaner result. I beveled the edges of mine and did some light edge slicking. It's really personal preference and is fully optional. Beveling the edges of the shoulder straps will increase comfort. I've included guide marks for the location of holes and rivets. It's a good idea to double check the pattern against the buckles you're going to use to make sure that the hole placement and strap width is appropriate for your choice of buckle. There are tools specifically designed for punching buckle slots, but I just punch a hole at either end and carefully cut between them with an X-Acto knife. Depending on your stitching method, you may also want to pre-punch holes for your stitching. The original leaf details appear to be metal. I made mine out of tooled leather and painted them with acrylic paint. There are a multitude of ways you could make these, so feel free to get creative. I attached mine with barge cement only because I couldn't bear to punch holes in them. I'll likely need to add rivets or stitching for extra security at some point, but for now I'm just enjoying how pretty they are. Once you've prepared all your pattern pieces and punched holes, you can begin the assembly. Add grommets and sew the drawstring channel at the top of the sides. Sew darts in the side pockets. If you choose, line your shoulder straps and add decorative stitching. Secure your buckles to the buckle straps with rivets. Make sure to select rivets that are the correct length for your leather thickness. If you're unsure, test on a piece of scrap first. Attach all the straps to the body of the pack and to the pockets. This is easier to do before the sides are attached. Attach the decorative leaves to the pocket flaps and sew the pocket flaps to the pack sides. Clip the sides to the front and back of the body, starting at the top and working your way down. A bit of easing will be required at the bottom to get everything in place. Once you're happy, clip the pockets on as well, easing them at the bottom. You can use glue or double-sided tape to keep everything in place while you do the stitching. Sew the sides and pockets to the body of the pack all at the same time. If you haven't already, add the decorative leaves to the top flap. Once your pack is complete, you're ready for adventures. Home is behind, the world ahead. But don't forget your pocket handkerchief.